And we're live. All right, so first things first, it says write the standard form of an equation of a line and identify each part. Now, when they say standard form, they don't mean capital S, capital T standard form, because that would imply a different type of form. Standard form with a capital S and capital F is different than what they're implying, right? What they mean is the form that you see most often. Now, the form that we see most often is actually called something else, and it looks like this. Does anybody know what that form is called? The name of that form? Very good. We call it slope-intercept form because it has the slope and the intercept, right? And which intercept does it give us?
Y.
The Y-intercept. Very good. And the Y-intercept is the B value, right? A is reserved for the X-intercept, which we don't really use that often. M is for slope because French slope starts with M. At least I think so. X and Y, on the other hand, are reserved for our coordinates. And those are the different parts. It says graph the following equations of a line. So they give you an equation of a line in slope-intercept form. This one right here. So we're going to graph that. Probably the easiest way to do it is to identify both the slope and the Y-intercept. Remember, B is the Y-intercept. If this is in slope-intercept form, what is our slope? 2. This guy right here. Right? It's the number next to the x, m. It's that coefficient. And our Y-intercept is what? 1. Now notice that 2 can be written as 2 over 1 as well, right? It can also be written as negative 2 over negative 1. These are all the same slope. Just a different way of looking at it. If we go to the Y-intercept, that means where we hit our Y-axis, we hit it at 1. That's what the B is telling us, right? So we put a dot there. Why is this useful? Because we need 2 dots to make a line, and the Y-intercept gives us one of our coordinates for free, right?
So we get a free point.
We do get a free point, and we love free points, don't we? So to find our next point, so we can make this dumb line, we need to use slope. Slope says that if we have a point and we apply the slope to it, in this case up 2 over 1, we'll be able to find another point on our line. And once we have 2 points, we can draw our line. So I'm going to do that. Up 2 over 1 from the point we know that is on the line. Not from the origin, but from that Y-intercept, right? Because we know that's a point that exists on our line. So to find another one, we go up from there 2 and over 1. You could also do the opposite. These are both the same, right? You could go down 2, left 1. Notice those would be on the same line. I would encourage you to use a protractor. We can keep going up 2 over 1 if we want. If you don't have a protractor, and that can help you make the line more accurate. Up 2 over 1 and down 2 left 1. Yes, you may. Say again? Our Y-intercept is at 0, 1. Yep, because the Y-intercept's at 1. That means where our line hits the Y-axis, right? Hits it at 1. Then it says we want to graph another line that is parallel to this and goes through this point. So first of all, the point that they're talking about is here. Sorry, it's so close together. It's 1, 1. If they want it to be parallel, what do we know about this line? It's going to have the same what? Yeah, slope's going to be the same, right? So we're going to go up 2 over 1 from that point that we know exists on our new line. Up 2 over 1 again and again and again, and that will create our parallel line. Now it says not just to create it, but also to identify the equation for it. So we're going to talk about that in a second.
Mr. Matt, can't you do this on your calculator?
You can. Although I would encourage you to do it for free on your phone.
You have to have a $100 calculator to do this on a calculator. You do it for free on your telephone.
That's right. So that's the equation y equals 2x plus 1, graphed out, right? We're looking at it graphically, like graphics, like your video games, right? Looking at 2x plus 1, it's not a joke, it's literally where it comes from. 2x plus 1, visually, graphically displayed, looks like that purple line, right? The blue line represents another equation. It's not going to be the same equation because they are separate lines, but they are going to have something in common. What do these two lines have in common? Their slope, right? They're parallel. So they're both going to be y equals 2x. However, the location of this line is different than the purple line. And location is defined by the y-intercept, right? Higher y-intercept, the line starts up higher. Lower y-intercept, it starts lower. It's the same thing here, except our y-intercept is going to be at what for the blue line? -1. Ta-da!
How did you get 2 lines?
Well, we were told to make one line,
Yeah.
and I did that with that equation. And then the other directions say, make a line that is parallel to that and goes through the point they give you. So I plotted the point that they gave us, 1, 1.
Yeah.
And then I used the same slope because it needs to be parallel, right?
So is there a way you can make it so it's on the other side of that line?
You could. We'd have to change the y-intercept to maybe positive 3,
Alright.
and it would be symmetrical on the other side, right? We'd just raise this one up to there. Okay. Look at number 2. It says y equals x. Now, another way to write this equation with more ink is to write it like this. There's a 1 in front of that x, because if there was a 0 in front of the x, that would imply 0 times x, and 0 times anything is what? 0. So we get y equals 0, which is a line we are going to look at, and you have looked at before, you just don't remember it. But this one is not y equals 0, it's y equals x. So there's a 1x there and a 0 for our y-intercept. So our slope is 1. Also could be written as 1 over 1, right? Or written as negative 1 over negative 1. All the same thing, it's just how you look at it. Y-intercept is 0. So that means our line is going to go through the origin. Now we have 1 point. To find another, we use our slope, right? So up 1 over 1. You could also go down 1, left 1. Again, these are equivalent. And you can keep doing up 1 over 1 or down 1, left 1 until you've created your line. I'm just going to call it a day and draw it. There's our line y equals x. Now let's think about what this means. When we say the line is y equals x, what does that mean? What does it mean for y to equal x? What's the idea? Yeah.
Y equals 1x.
Same thing here. Yep. If I told you y and x are the same, right? That's all it means, right? I mean, I know it's kind of a silly way to ask it. It's just repeating what I said, basically. But y and x are the same. So this line represents all of the coordinates, all of the points, all of the dots, where y and x are the same number. So give me a number for x, Rosie. 2. So we would expect that if y equals x, then the point 2, 2 should show up, and it does. Every point where y and x are the same, it'll be on that line. That's what this line represents. Keaton, give me an integer. Positive or negative whole number? 3. So we'd expect 3, 3 to show up, and it do. Give me a negative number. Anybody? Negative 5. So we'd expect negative 5 to show up, wouldn't we? And it does. Negative 5 is right there. So when you think about what this means, you see this equation and they ask you to graph it. You don't have to find the slope. You don't have to find the y-intercept to graph it. You can just say, well, any point where x and y are the same is going to show up, right? So pick a number. Same for x and y. Pick another number. Same for x and y. Connect them. That's what that means. What does it mean? Let's not go on yet. Let's go here. We need to graph the line that goes through this point and is parallel. So 2, 3. That's here again. Sorry for it being so close. And it needs to have the same slope. Our slope was 1, so up 1 over 1 is what we're doing. Same thing with down 1, left 1. And there's our line. I'm going to try not to screw this up. So the black line is y equals x. The blue line is not going to just be y equals x. It's going to be y equals x, but everything was shifted up 1. Now, which variable deals with the up and down? X or y? So y deals with the up and down, right? So everything is pushed up 1. So whatever x is, it's not going to be the same as y anymore. Y is now going to be whatever x is plus 1, right? So if x is 3, y is going to be 4 because everything was moved up 1. If x is 5, y is going to be 6. Does that make sense? That's what this is talking about. In other words, our y-intercept is at 1, and our slope is 1 over 1, right? But what does it mean? It means take x, add 1 to it, that's going to be your y value. It shifts everything else up 1. X and y otherwise would be the same. What does this mean? Y equals 2x minus 1. What's the relationship between y and x here?
2x minus 1.
Yeah. So double x and subtract 1, it's going to get you y. So, Katie, give me a number for x. 4. Okay, so we would expect that the point 4 comma what would show up on this line? Double it and subtract 1. 7. Double 4, you get 8. Subtract 1, you get 7, right? So if I know what this means, I can figure it out pretty easily, right? Pick a number for x, any number works, right? Plug it in, get the other variable, plot that point. If I chose -1, I double it, get -2, subtract 1, I get -3. That point is going to show up on this line, -1 comma -3. And there it is. If I chose 0, double it, still 0, subtract 1. 0, -1 should show up, and it does. That's our y-intercept, actually. Think about what this stuff means. The line represents all of the points that fit this criteria. Any point where x, when you double it and subtract 1, is y. Just like down here, it was any point where they're both the same. That's what it means. Turn the page. Number 3. What does it mean?
Y is the same as the negative x.
Y is going to be whatever negative x is, right? What's another way to say that?
-1x.
What? Say it again?
Y equals -1x.
Yeah, that's another way to say it. But what does it mean? Y and x are going to be the same except what?
Negative.
One of them is going to be negative, right? They're going to have opposite signs. The only time they won't is when x is 0, right? But they're going to be opposite signs. So if I chose a number for x, let's choose a number. How about 3? What would y be? -3, right? Y is going to be the negative version of x. X is 3, so y is going to be the negative version of that. If it's 5, it's going to be -5. If it's -2, it's going to be +2. So without looking at the slope, without looking at the y-intercept, without any of that stuff, I can plot these points, right? 3, -3 is here. 5, -5 is here. -2, comma 2 is here. We've got our line. You can always plug stuff in to figure out what your line is going to be. It's every point where y and x are opposite signs. That's what that means. Now, what is our slope for this guy? -1, right? A way to write this with more ink would be y equals -1x plus 0, right? So our slope is -1. It can also be thought of as -1 over 1, or it can be thought of as 1 over -1. Up 1, left 1, right? That's what this guy is. Our y-intercept, b, where does this go through the y-axis, I should say? Where does it go through? Where does it cross the y-axis at? 0, right? Crosses at 0. Which makes sense. That's our y-intercept. Sorry, I will zoom out. There's our slope. Now, if we want to make a line that's parallel to that but goes through 0, 4, here's 0, 4, 0 in the x direction, 4 in the y. 1, 2, 3, 4. Got some space now. Same slope. So down 1 to the right 1, and up 1 to the left 1 gives us our slope. So the light blue line has its own equation, and the dark blue line has the equation y equals -x. They have the same slope because they're parallel, but the difference between the dark blue and the light blue is location. Which one's higher, the light blue or the dark blue? The light blue, so it's going to have a positive value for b, right? It's going to be bigger than this guy, 0. It's going to be +4, because that's where it hits it, at 4. right? It's this same line, but moved 4 up. That's all. It's whatever x is, but we're going to add 4 to it, right? It's going to be 4 higher. So our coordinates for that would be, if I plugged in 3 to this one, I get negative 3 plus 4, which is 1. If I plug in 5, I would expect negative 1 to pop up, because negative 5 plus 4 is negative 1. And if I plug in negative 2, well, negative 2, I'm negating negative 2. Negate means change sign, right? So instead of negative 2, I'm talking about positive 2 plus 4, which is 6. So negative 2, 6 will show up. There it is. 5, negative 1 will show up. 5 in this direction, 1 down. 3, 1 will show up right here. We see what these equations mean and how they relate to the graph. It's not just find the slope, find the y-intercept. There's a meaning behind this, a relationship between x and y. Y and x are the same, except x's sign has changed and you add 4. Y and x are the same, except x's sign has changed, so it's, and then you add 4, right? That was going to be a negative 1, then we add 4. We get 3. Change the sign, it's positive 1, now add 4. We get 5. Change the sign, it's negative 6, add 4, we get negative 2. 4 and 5 are on your own. Turn the page. Clue number 6. I have calc students, or at least I used to, that would get confused by this. But you're not going to be, because you're going to think about what this means. Right? When you're stuck in the mode of, what's the slope, what's the y-intercept, you get screwed over when you get to here. And if you don't get screwed over there, you definitely get screwed over here. So for number 6, y equals 0. What kind of points are going to show up on that kind of line?
0.
0 for what?
All, 'cause
All of these coordinates are going to have what? 0 for y. Y is 0. That's what it means, right? It seems silly to spell that out, but that's what it means. It says every point where y is 0 is going to show up in this line. So any point that I make is going to have a 0 for the y. Does it tell us anything about the x? No. There is no relationship between x and y. They're both independent. Y is always 0. X does whatever it wants, right? So the points that are going to show up in this line are going to have y for 0 and any other x value we want. Pick a number for x. Give me a number, Tana. 7. Give me a number for x. Kayla. Give me a number for x. Autumn. All those points are going to show up on this line because the only rule is y has to be equal to 0, right? So here's 7, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here's 2, 0. Here's 4, 0. What kind of line is that going to make?
straight line.
All lines are straight.
Horizontal.
Horizontal. Going left to right. That is the line y equals 0. It's where every point on the line has a 0 for the y value, right?
So it's
Horizon line, yep, horizontal. Now they want the other guy to go through 5, 4, but be parallel. Well, here's 5, 4. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the point it has to go through. You know it has to be horizontal.
So then you just make it.
So that's easy to draw. Now the question is, what's the equation going to be? It's going to be y equals something. Here, on every point, go to your line that you just drew. Pick a point randomly on it. I'm going to pick a point right here. What's the coordinates of that point right there? Looks like negative 2, 4, right? If I choose another one randomly, 1, 4. Do you see what y is always going to be? Y is always going to be 4. So that's why the equation is y equals 4. Every point where y equals 4 shows up on there. That's what it means. So they wanted us to graph this guy, which we did in blue. Then they said, find an equation that's parallel to that and goes through this point. So that's where the second guy came from. Okay? So it has to go through 5, 4, there it is. And has to have the same slope, horizontal, right? Now, what is our slope actually for these lines? Think about it, rise over run. What's it going to be?
X is y equals. I'm trying to think.
What'd you say?
I'm too stupid for this.
No slope. 0, right? Think slope is steepness of a hill. If it's horizontal, do we have a hill? No, because it's not steep. 0 slope. In other words, it's 0 over whatever you want. Maybe 0 over 5. I don't know, right? We're going to go up 0. Okay, did it. Now go to the right 5. Done. You see how that's the slope? It could be 0 over anything. And that makes sense because 0 does equal 0 over anything. It doesn't matter what this number is down here. The number could even be negative, right? If I'm at 0, I'm right here, and I go up 0, okay, done. Now go to the left 4, okay. Same slope. 0 over anything is 0. So our slope is 0. Our y-intercept. What's the y-intercept for the blue one? 0, right? In fact, whatever y equals is going to be your y-intercept. When y is equal to 0, we have an intercept at 0. When we have a y equals 4, it's going to be 4, right? The intercept's going to be at 4. Yeah.
So it's going to be true for all lines that are perfectly horizontal, though?
Yeah, it's going to be y equals 4, y equals 5, y equals 7. If I graphed y equals 8, it would be a line that's horizontal where y is 8. Where all the y's are 8, right? Every x is 0 for number 7, right? Again, this is super confusing if you don't know what's going on, because you're like, wait a minute, y equals mx plus b? There isn't even a y here. But if you know what it means, it's no big deal. We know that all the x's are going to be zeros, right? We only need 2 points to graph. So if the x's are going to be zeros, done. Does this say anything about y? No, because y can be anything. There's no relationship between y and x. They're both independent. Keaton, give me a number for y. 3. So 0, 3 is going to show up on this, because 0 for x, who cares what happens in y. Andrew, give me a number for y. 5. Both those are going to show up because they fit the criteria. X is 0. So x is 0, y is 3. Bam, there's the first point. X is 0, y is 5. What kind of line is that going to make?
Perpendicular line or vertical?
Not perpendicular, but horizontal, vertical, right? Up and down.
What?
No, you're all right. Words are hard, math is easy. You're good at math. Words are hard.
You are a stupid.
Math's not easy.
You struggle with the words more than you do the math. X equals 0, trust
I
me.
struggle with everything.
Think about it. Hey, hang on.
It's not in here.
This is gonna equal
He has a weak bladder.
So there's x equals 0.
negative.
This guy over here is negative 3, negative 2.
It's gonna equal -3.
So all of the points that are on here all have x of negative 3, right? So our line has the equation of x equals negative 3, right? That describes this line. It's where all the x's are negative 3. Now let's talk about slope. Slope is the rise over the run. Pick a point to start on the blue line. How about the origin? How much do we go up before we go over? We go up infinitely, don't we? Right? So you could go up 5 over 0, and then go up 5 over 0 again, right? You just keep doing that. So any number on top, let's choose 5. Do we ever go over? We do not. So 5 over 0. What's anything divided by 0? Wrong. Undefined. It breaks math. Undefined slope. And here's why it breaks math, Schlaffer. Let's assume that 5 over 0 is 0, like Schlaffer said. If this is true, assuming this is true, right? Shouldn't I be able to cancel out divide by 0 by timesing by 0? Right, if I had to divide by 2 there, couldn't I multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of it? So let's multiply both sides by 0. Multiplication property of equality. Should be able to do it. We get 0 and 0 cancel because by definition we divide by 0 times by 0 are reciprocals, right? So we get 5 equals, what's 0 times 0? So we get 5 equals 0. This breaks math because 5 does not equal 0. In fact, you can make any number equal any number because you can choose any number to put on top of here and have any number equal 0. And then after that, can't we do addition property of equality? As long as we do it to both sides, it's legal. Now I've proven that 8 equals 3.
Still wrong.
Yeah, do you see how this breaks math? This is no bueno. So dividing by 0 is not allowed. Now what if we have 0 on top?
That's some other one that's words. I don't remember what it is.
If we multiply by 5 to both sides, right? Multiplication property of equality. Divide by 5 cancels. We get 0. What's 0 times 5? And that checks out. Do you see why that's allowed? Dividing by 0 is not. But 0 divided by number is fine. The way I think of it is 0 divided by number means I have 0 things and I have 5 friends. How much is everybody getting? 0, right? I've got 0 things to divide up among 5 friends. Everybody gets nothing, right? If I have 5 things and 0 friends, first of all, you lonely, right? Second of all, 5 divided by 0, I've got 5 things, 0 friends. So not even counting myself. 5 things, 0 friends. How much does everybody get? Well, right? You see what I'm saying? Not really, because that'd be 5 divided by 1.
Maybe I'm.
You see how that breaks math? Right?
Sure. But I didn't even make room.
Wait, do we not draw anything for undefined?
Undefined, you just write undefined slope. Whenever we divide by 0, it's undefined.
Can we get an airplane?
Oh, yeah.
But like what type of airplane? Is it a good one or? Thanks.
That was dope, huh?
We're making paper airplanes. That's what I'm saying.
Throw it, throw it, throw
Bruce,
it,
you
throw
got
it.
a gift.
Short tower, big tower, throw it.
It'll curve. Watch out.
This one's north, this one's south. Go.
No.
The rest are on your own. Number 8 is on your own, I should say. Don't worry about these guys. Just do 1 through 8. That is all.
Are you gonna eat your french fries so I can have the bag?
Ooh, good point, good point.
Do I want my french fries?
Try to get the screw out of the wall.
Don't do that.
Why?
Was that right? Exit.
Are we
Yes,
done?
yes, they are.
He's gonna put it on his head.
Oh, Browns.
Don't do it. He can't even put it on his head.
Just rip it. You got salt
There's
all
salt
in
in your hair, like completely.
Shake your head. Just like
your hair. Shake it up. Shake it up.
I need to get a glass bottle. Marta. I